You can take the control and share your presentation.
Got it. How's everyone doing today? It's quite a bit of a turnout.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today's session on game development at Microsoft. We have Louis Sim with us today, who is GTM and product marketing at Microsoft. He will be walking us through the Microsoft Gaming and what it has to offer, what are the features you can use, what are the tools that you can help you. So let us hear from him. Over to you.
Great. So thank you everyone, for joining us today. I'm super excited to share and unpack, many of the things and developments with regards to Microsoft and gaming, and more specifically on how Microsoft is, committed to helping game developers. So, and I really want to share with you more of the things, game developers and yourself can have access to. So, for the interest of bandwidth, I'll probably turn off my camera so that things load easily. But very nice to see everyone, and feel free to connect with me, on LinkedIn and ask questions after the call. Cool. So before we begin, I think I'll go over a little bit of what we'll be covering in this session today. Um, I'll start a little bit with the white lens on Microsoft and gaming, and how developers can leverage on the cloud. For the third one, I'll dive deeper into ID at Azure, which is our game developers program, regardless of all size, small games, complex games, etc. I'll share more details and how you can, get started. And if we have, the luxury of time, definitely be more than happy to share with you a little bit more on PlayFab. This is something that we're pushing very actively, and it's getting a lot of traction in the market today. Great. So, sorry. So before we begin, I'll share at the end of the presentation, there will be sort of a QR, and you can get, the slides there. So, do use the QR or the URL, and sign up for some of our updates. We want to keep a close relations and connection with everyone who's interested on what Microsoft has to offer. So to start out, when it comes to gaming industry, definitely we, have to talk about how we have come a long way, right? Some nostalgia here. We came from the arcade gaming era in the 1990s, the PC gaming era, in the 90s era, and then we have like the console gaming era where Microsoft, first acquired Xbox, as many of you know. So fast forward to 2018, we have took many steps to, build out our vision for cloud gaming. If you can see at the right-hand side, the one with the remote control, 2018 marks a year of a great breakthrough for cloud gaming, right? Why is that so? Because we acquired PlayFab, which is really a back-end platform services that help us build out multiplayer games. From the consumer standpoint, we launched a gaming platform known as Xbox Cloud Gaming. So essentially, they have a pass, and then they can play as many games as possible. And more recently, I think everyone is quite interested in. We have acquired, Activision, as part of, our hopes to, pave the next wave of cloud gaming. I'll share more into details in a bit. But essentially, from Microsoft, how we're seeing gaming today, we know that people don't just play games on consoles anymore, or PC on PC games only, or mobile on mobile games, right? People are starting to want to play their games across platforms, so they want to have entertainment everywhere. We also know that games are a little bit more, advanced and complex. There's also a lot of heavier reliant on technology, which means that, cutting edge technology and experience are usually available historically on latest console and high-end PCs. They're not available on, commonly used powered laptops or tablets or phones. So we also see that changing. And that's why we are pushing, cloud advancement, because it doesn't, you don't rely on, a certain processing power, etc. You rely a lot on the cloud. And lastly, really game as a service, right? It's sort of we know that high margin, very impressive, high performing games uses a lot of services like analytics, multiplayer, player relationship management, performance marketing, etc. So it's no longer just about like you creating a game. It's sort of like a whole end-to-end service that we are seeing today. So why are we pushing for cloud gaming really is we know that game streaming requires, a lot of uh, power, right? Processing power. Game streaming, it's essentially streaming on cloud services rather than local devices to run or build games. For players, it really means that there's no need to download or install games on a PC or console anymore. Um, for developers, in a nutshell, it just means that you don't really have to upgrade your hardware to build to get gain more features or functionalities to build higher quality games. Um, so streaming services usually, instead now rely on only a reliable internet connection to send gaming information and then to the devices. So it no longer requires complex tech equipment. Cloud gaming has also been around for a decade now. It's only getting more common really because of, for instance, the 5G networks that are popping up around Asia recently. The more advanced mobile phones or common computers are today. So it's really the time to start thinking about cloud gaming and developing for the cloud, because as you can see, more people are starting to get their Xbox Game Passes. How does cloud really work, right? It just means that in most cases, it goes by a subscription-based model, either monthly or yearly from the player point of view or from the developer's point of view, to access certain content or equipment. So it's usually very compatible with the latest equipment like controls or your common setup of your traditional mouse and keyboard. So very convenient, very, very down to earth kind of tech, but something that we have a lot more to say. But before we dive into cloud, ultimately Microsoft is really moving towards a more inclusive mission. We hold ourselves to a very high bar in making the most inclusive experiences for both players and creators. Creators really, right? And we champion our peers to do the same. Ultimately, we believe in building the most inclusive gaming community, but of course, we stand by the developers who really makes gaming a reality. So how we are doing so is that, as you know, in 2022, at GDC, we announced that we are committed to powering games and creators. We want games to go beyond platforms and geographical boundaries. As a bold step, in August 2022, we announced our partnership with Unity. We will work with Unity, who is a global leader in the real-time 3D technology, to keep expanding the creation and distribution of 3D content. 3D content, as you know, is very, very common in games today. Our goal is to keep bringing these relevant tools and technologies to all creators, regardless of background, regardless of skills. And we want to make it easier than ever for anyone who bring their games to life. For cloud gaming in 2022, what we are seeing, as many of you might know, we moved a little bit on Xbox app to Samsung TVs, which means you don't need a console to play Xbox games anymore. We also, expanded Xbox Game Pass to mobile, to PC and Mac as well. And lastly, I think more recently, we also expanded Xbox Cloud games can be, launched and accessible via Bing and Microsoft Edge. That essentially means that the games you build today will have a lot more, eyeballs and a lot more hands to play it. We are very excited about this. And we are starting to, work with a lot of stakeholders around Southeast Asia. For instance, for Indonesia, we're partnering with, MNC Group, uh, essentially really helping them to, build their gaming teams. And we want to work very closely with them to, help the game developers of Indonesia. In Vietnam, we also launched sort of a partnership with VTC and VNG. We are working on a national curriculum, to help game developers raise their skills and ultimately take whatever games that they build beyond the borders to the world. So Korea and China, as you can see, we are investing very heavily, really on working very closely with game developers and finding the next biggest game, right? Doesn't have to be Korea and China. We are also actively looking for Southeast Asia. So with that said, I think just to share a little bit more on how we work closely with Southeast Asian game developers, we work with them to bring and publish their games to Game Pass. We really want to do that because Southeast Asia, the games actually tell very unique local stories. For instance, Raji is a very prime example. And all these games that you build showcase that amazing talent and experience that you guys have that comes from Asia. Definitely in the future, we can't wait to bring more of these to the world. Lastly, before I wrap up this section, just to share some numbers, with the Xbox at ID program, which really solely focus on publishing instead of development that we are talking about today. Indie developers have earned more than 2 billion in royalties, fundings, and revenue globally. But in fact, in Southeast Asia alone, the revenue generated by our partners have doubled over the last 3 years, because we are starting to ramp up a lot of the games and we're pushing them out actively to the market. That said, before I go into the cloud, and for everyone to take a break, I have a video here that I'll play for probably a minute to just show you the kind of, the visuals that we can, the kind of game experience that we can build. Enjoy. Okay. So basically, this video talks about, how we can build in the cloud. It's reviewed by David Moley, which is a technological reporter from the BBC. Essentially, I think like what I want to really share about this is that there's a lot of going on for the game experience, right? As you can see, the development clearly requires a number of, more advanced features and services to build. My favorite really is the PlayFab features in terms of the analytics, the multiplayer functionalities, and the account management. I think that's something it's very much plug and play with some catered experience that you can bring in. So I'll go more into detail slightly later, but essentially I think you can see um, a lot of the experience and the world created by this it's sort of powered by Azure, and ultimately mostly AI can help you figure out how to best create the most realistic experience for everyone. But that's it. I think in terms of I'll just brief through this very quickly. Ultimately, developing in the games in the cloud just means that it's really supported by a global footprint of servers and low latency networks. You get to, reach gamers across geographical location. We also, think that developing games in the cloud will help you, um, you know, save more time and spend less time relying on unreliable infrastructure to scale your games. What it means that is we believe that you can focus more on unleashing your developers team potential, and leaving the tough tech pieces to us at Microsoft. Ultimately, we also want you to create the best product you can create, by having that real-time experience and data of like what players really want. Ultimately, you can use that data to learn and understand about your players, and to also better personalize and improve those experience that can be timeless and long lasting. I'll skip the last one because I'm going to dive deeper into detail. Essentially, flexibility, what it means is that it really creates that, it allows you to quickly iterate your game design based on the feedback that you are seeing, right, from any sort of early access model. But it also means collaboration because we want your team to be able to collaborate wherever or whenever they want. So it means that you might have remote teams. You might outsource certain part of your processes to somewhere else. And working in the cloud would mean that you get that real time sort of collaboration model and connection. But ultimately, I think what it means is that also it means that you can easily implement useful functionalities. For instance, chat and translation across different platforms that helps your players communicate wherever they want. And regardless of skills or level, players can understand your games because of the advanced analytics that you can use, to understand what's happening out there and how they are interacting with games. In terms of scalability, it just means that we are sort of offering, that global infrastructure that has low latency and a lot of to help you, ensure that your players get a better experience. It also means taking advantage of, high availability, low downtime, no downtime at all. And ultimately, these tools and services that are based on the cloud can help you scale up and down very quickly, depending on your development needs. It allows you to pivot very quickly to ensure you set your game up for success. In a nutshell, it really means that we want to reduce costs for you and we want to speed up your development time. At the same time, ensure that your player get the best experience they deserve. So what Azure can do for you? When we talk about game development service at Microsoft, we are thinking about the end-to-end solution approach, right? It means that we are thinking about all the challenges that you're facing in the world today. Developers face a number of obstacles, right? So these solutions can help, in managing this distributed development across teams, remotely or not. So different people can take up different parts of the developmental cycle. Multi-services, multiplayer services would means that you get, more opportunity for cross-play and cross-platform gaming. And ultimately, with data, it means that you can sort of work on your difficulty balancing, which means that, is the game too hard for certain people, you can sort of balance that out. If the game is, too difficult, we can sort of give them a little bit of a token or handicap, as and when, if we find out they are having some trouble. So that sort of, catered experience is going to, help improve the game experience. For other ways of improving that, it could be text to speech or speech to text kind of like services or auto translation services. And ultimately, what I'm trying to get across today really is the idea at Azure program because it offers you a very sort of like a starter level and sort of help you ramp up across how you grow your game and your team, which I'll go more into details soon. Lastly, Microsoft really essentially a cloud platform service provider, right? But we are also a game developer. We build games, for Xbox, and we have a lot of experts that we want to keep you in connection with. Um, what it really means is that we totally understand the challenges faced by game creators today. We have like more than 20 over first-party studios that actively test on Azure, which means that we are also actively improving Azure on a daily basis. Um, you know, I'm trying to avoid a lot of the sales talk, but essentially we want to deliver you a proven production-ready gaming services provided by enterprise-grade cloud, which means that whatever you're using, the big companies are also using. So that's why we are really trying to help the indie developers and creators of today. Lastly, I just really want to point out that at the end of this presentation, we'll be talking a little bit more on PlayFab. How we came about acquiring PlayFab is that we listen, right? We listen to developers, and we know that developers are having some difficulty with a lot of our main Azure core services in the past, right? Essentially, we built on its reliability and scale, but we know that there are some things still missing, and hence we acquired PlayFab. PlayFab offers, as mentioned, live ops capabilities that help you understand everything that your gamers are doing in real time, and helps you create like the most refined experience. But I'll go more into that later. Ultimately, I think what we want to work on now is to dive deeper into ID at Azure, which is what we are really, focused on today. If you don't remember a lot of things that I'm saying, focus on this, because this is the program that we are very excited to share with everyone across all the countries. Let me get a sip of water. Okay, so moving on, for Idea Azure, it's really essentially a new program that's sort of like came to the market just in a year ago. The focus is really to help empower and enable developers with big aspiration to leverage on the cloud and build the games that for the future. It's essentially open to anyone trying to develop games, from the smallest team, individual team, to sort of an indie studio, or even if you are someone who's just starting out building your games and you have outsourced to people from other countries, that also works for you. It's essentially not a program just for Xbox developers. It's really open to creators regardless of all of your end platforms. Why we created this program? Because we know making games is hard. Everyone says that it's hard, but it's definitely true, right? So the goal of Idea Azure is to not pretend that using the cloud is going to make the game developing any easier, but we will make it less difficult because you have more tools and more people by your side. How we are doing that really? Sorry. How we are doing that really, to empower developers, is we want you to take advantage of the same services and capabilities used by a large team, as mentioned, right? Some of the biggest games are using this today. We want every small independent team to be successful because we know that working with cloud opens up a lot of possibilities for your game. ID at Azure is designed to help you develop faster and to work smarter using the cloud, with a lot of support along the way. So what it means is that we are going to offer any participants of our program free access to Azure services, which you can try out at no cost at all. We want you to also work smarter, not harder, because there's a whole collection of curated resources to help you understand and learn and build for the best. We also will be with you along the way because we want to provide developers with the best-in-class support, which means that you have access to a lot of our in-house cloud experts, that are building games along with you. I'll dive a little bit more into details with the specific benefits. To develop faster, it means that we want to enable developers to, start doing something with no cost at all. Just last year in December 2022, what it means is that we up, a lot of the Azure credits from 5,000 to 150,000 for a single startup or a single team, right? It means that anyone can qualify with an initial amount of $1,000. You don't have to pay with us, but we will start you out with a 1K benefit, and then we'll slowly sort of build on that sort of model. And we want to work very closely with you on what you need. We are also offering the developers a PlayFab program up to 2 years. It essentially usually costs $99 every year, which includes, $400 worth of monthly meters, but we are offering to you guys free, And what that means is that ID at Azure program members can get access to a lot of the extended services limits if you request for it. And this is really based on your working model and your game. We won't be there to tell you what to do or what not to do. I think it's just a lot of understanding about what your game needs, and I think where we can help. These services we are offering are extremely generous as compared to our competitors, and we have been sort of benchmarked against the usage that we've seen in our most successful titles today. The net result really means that it's that PlayFab services will no longer charge in the future, maybe. But we're excited to have you guys on board. This is sort of a program where we show you, the development, the qualifying developers who have been accessed and allowed, approved to participate. You'll get a initial amount of 1K, and with that, the opportunity to grow that 1K to up to 150K. This is something very exciting because we are currently working with startups of Asia Pacific to work to quickly ramp them up. For develop faster, essentially it means that you get free access to powerful development tools and productivity tools under Microsoft Startup Founders Hub, which means that you get access to developer tools like Visual Studio Enterprise, GitHub Enterprise, Power BI, Microsoft 365, and even Outlook and Teams. This would mean that your team is sort of fully powered to be the best team that your team envision itself to. Lastly, we have education models, a portal. What it means is that we are building a great resource for everyone based on your skills level. Let me dive into this a little bit deeper. Regardless of your skills level, for developers who are new to the cloud, we have materials that explain the very basic, right? For developers who have more experience, we have resources to help you, extend certain managed services on PlayFab, or using, more native Azure services. And for developers who are experienced and already working with other cloud providers, we have our Cloud Guru resource that will, detail a lot of these information with regards to, architecture and how to migrate your infrastructure to Azure. But what is a little bit more exciting, really, is the support that we are committed to giving all developers. The final component of the ID Azure program allows game developers to be, make quick progresses and avoid any downtime. With that said, what it means is that you have advanced support, to the Azure portal. It comes with, you get free access to premium Azure support services, which is 24/7 to our support engineers via email and phone. And usually it's only a few hours of response time. For PlayFab, you actually have access to the PlayFab Game Manager, and with that comes free access to ticketed PlayFab support. This ticket goes directly to the development team at PlayFab in the US, and you can expect a response within a day. Ultimately, what I think is the greatest here is you get access to connect with the experts at Microsoft. Um, to build this, we have office hours every week where you actually can be on the call and ask these experts anything you want, or even get their help with some of the games that you are working on. We also have expert sessions that will be diving deeper into products or services and connecting you with the team to understand certain part of building a game. Think of it more as like a educational workshop, right? But ultimately, it gives you that one-to-one engagement because we want to know like what you're working on and also feedback to us how we can best suit your needs. Ultimately, these sessions are scheduled in advance and hosted by teams. And we usually record these sessions so that, you can actually, take a look at it over time. And new members can actually take advantage of all this for, things that they have missed out. I think this is a great opportunity to feedback, um, to have that two-way communication, similarly to the principles that we are trying to promote for PlayFab. That is to know your users and know your audiences. Um, I'll just dive deeper into the case study very quickly. Ultimately, the first case study is that we have Variable State, right? Which is really an award-winning independent game studio based in the UK. Um, they have been working on developing, their narratives like Virginia and Last Stop. And their most recent game called Game Tree, they're using Azure to work more effectively as a distributed team. They have harnessed two virtual machines on Azure to help with their game development. One is more on perforce server on version control, and other is more on continuous integration server using Jenkins. Their feedback to us really is about how they found ID at Azure very, very helpful. And they're trying to, actively use PlayFab analytics and live ops for the future. The next one is more on PlayFab. Essentially, since joining the closed beta program, we have this company, Torum, who has been trying to implement cross-platform leadership boards very quickly. This is due to the convenience of all players. The developers want the players to have a number of benefits. For instance, being able to restore players' data, being able to, improve engagement rates, and being able to, have some sort of a cross PC, cross-platform engagement, ultimately funneling everything into sort of a back-end data to understand their players' movement and understand a lot of their performance accordingly. So Torum in the future, they plan to use live ops and analytics to improve their game balancing. They want to change their in-game items and currency, and ultimately adjusting enemies' difficulty levels to gain insights into the popularity of their builds. This is something super exciting because Torum Entertainment has always been one that focuses on understanding their players. Ultimately, just want to share that Idea Azure is only launched just 1 year ago in December 2022, and we announced it 1 year ago in 2021, and we announced it only in 2022. So I'm so excited to be sharing this with everyone here today. The program is, actively working on one-on-one meetings to, constantly improve it. So we seek your patience, but we are, at a global level, improving it and giving the best to our developers. Ultimately, we want to build the best destination for young, aspiring, as well as advanced developers to get the best out of cloud tech. So we can't wait to see everyone here what you can accomplish with the tools that we are providing. Um, I'd be more than happy to hear from you guys, either through the Q&A or maybe after this session, to see some of the interesting games that you are building. Ultimately, I'm going to wrap up this session very quickly. For ID at Azure, everyone is eligible as long you are building games for commercial release. Sort of a note just to share is that we are platform agnostic, which means that whichever platform you're building, whether is it for mobile or is it for Steam or Epic or PlayStation, Nintendo, you can use Azure and ID at Azure. We are also engine agnostic, which means that if you are using Unreal or Unity, or even your own custom game engine, we are sort of, we can sort of adapt to that. And finally, we are also business model agnostic, which means that we are open to everyone, regardless of your business model, whether it's premium, whether it's to F2P, or subscription model that you can or can choose not to mention. So you can start applying to this with 3 simple steps. It would just mean that just go to ID at Azure. I'll send across the link through the QR code later. Use the QR code later, and you will have it will send directly a mail with full of resources to your email. Complete the very short application form, and share more about your studio and game. With that said, you can expect a response within 2 or 3 business days, usually. But given that it's still the start of the year, I think we probably might have to wait a little bit longer, but it won't be that long. Lastly, once you get access to ID at Azure, you have a one-stop shop to everything, to game developers hub. It essentially means that you can get all the access I've mentioned earlier. But ultimately, I would need to give a disclaimer is that for every ID at Azure member sign up, you have to sign an NDA with Microsoft. It just means that we are sharing classified industry pre-access information with you guys. And I think it goes vice versa, right? Whatever you share with us, we won't be, sharing or writing papers about it. So it's going to be a top secret between us. The NDA definitely is set up to protect your confidential information, given that you are our partner and our participant in this program. Okay, I think for now, maybe I would like to just stop a little while to see if anyone has any questions so far on Microsoft at Gaming or ID at Azure, before I go into the a very short case study of PlayFab. Anyone have any question? I see some hands. Let's see. For those who have raised their hands, could you maybe unmute yourself and ask your question? Okay, I'll leave it for later. Cool. Bear with me a little bit more. We are ending in a little bit. I'm very glad that everyone is staying through. So ultimately for PlayFab, today I'd just love to share the story on PlayFab. As you know, it's an acquisition, as I mentioned earlier. Why we have acquired this particular tech is that we know that nobody wants to write a new functionality, a new database to do a leaderboard of sorts, right? We know people don't want to write like a new code to build something else. So we want to solve that issue very quickly. And this is because we are talking with a lot of people, right? And we know that developers today don't want to do that because it should be readily available. PlayFab has been sort of proven and shared that it helps with their developers' retention as well, because we're giving developers time, and energy to do the things that they want to do. Ultimately, companies or new developer studios are, letting their back-end guys offload all these boring things to focus on things that are interesting and things that are important to them. PlayFab essentially has tons of features, right? As you can see, PlayFab has grown ninefold in the last 3 years, and this is an article from this year. Why is that so? I'll share with you guys in a little bit. But ultimately, these features are built for gamers, and we call it live op capabilities. Live ops is something that is something very attractive these days, and to keep the game very sticky, very fun, and very customized to every single individual that is playing the game. Through analytics, it allows you to give, for instance, something at a certain point of time. It allows your gamers to actually communicate with you, right? Um, and ultimately, what it means is that we are actually trying to, offer you a lot of features that help you build your product quicker, you know, at the pre-launch age, so that you can start testing it globally. So with that said, here's some background. Why we are pushing for this is that we know that games have moved from sort of a product and service over the years. When we think about how are they a product and service, we think about the digital distribution, right? And it's becoming more of a community instead. Why is that so? Games today, we believe, is very much like a living thing. It's not something that you build and you just put it there. It's something that you have to feed, you have to water, you have to understand, you have to learn, you have to communicate. It's no longer just about shipping a game. And what that means is that um, people are so involved with your game, and that means that they're enjoying your game, and that your game is becoming a part of their lives. And with the world being dominated by mobile and social platforms, it means that they are also talking to other people about your games and promoting your games with a community of people. And that connection to social media as well, um, it means that there's so many data streams out there that we can leverage on. And increasingly, it also means that there's a more direct relationship between the developer and the player. To put things in perspective, it means that there's so many more metrics that the developer can have access to, you know, in the market. So I'll share a little bit more on how we started this journey. Way back in 2017 and 18, you can see that carryover of 90%, right, of Leagues of Legends, Candy Crush, Pokemon Go, right? And that happens in the same from 19 to 20. But if we compare 2017 to 2020, we saw a 50% carryover only, which means that for the first time in ever, we are starting to see games like Roblox, Fortnite, FIFA, Call of Duty going up, right? To 2020. We are also seeing Leagues of Legend, Dungeon of Fighter, Crossfire, Pokemon Go also going up to the top 5. What it means is that you have started a live community. And the only way to manage a live community is to embark on live ops. I mean, normally, when you think about live ops, you think about your Discord channel or your forums. But at the end of the day, maybe only 10% of the players are, on these channels and are actively participating. What about the other data flows? What PlayFab does is it collects an effective stream of data from everything the player is doing. From the moment they enter the game, from the moment they exit the game, you can have that data stream and use that to build the most effective profiles of users. We call it user groups. So for the new gamers, what you want to do as they progress to more advanced players, what can you do? This is something that we are super excited about. Essentially, it means that 1 million of events are flowing through your game at every single second. We have tons of games currently and billion accounts in the service of Azure. We can scale to any size of the game, no matter what it is. Even Roblox is on this service, so we can scale it. What it means is that PlayFab will act as a data analytics team running through and helping you determine what is your best next step. From accessing if a character type is needed, whether we want to release the drug or we release the monk from pre-early access to launch. All these intelligent decisions can be made with the help of PlayFab. Ultimately, you can still rely on your program manager, or your producer or marketing team, but with all these sort of intelligent actions, we leave the strategy to yourself. So I'm in my last few slides here. So hang in there. So ultimately, our vision for live ops is that for there are so many different ways that your players are interacting with your game. You can hook all these data that come streaming in with our core services. Essentially, with PlayFab, you are using the data insights and you're building sort of the user experience. The achievement that we have made so far is that for the thousands of games that we work on, we have more than 3,300 monthly active games that have more than 100K monthly active users. And with that said, we are also seeing 4.4 billion non-unique active users that are using this PlayFab. And this model is just something new. Ultimately, what PlayFab really does is to offer everyone the mix and match opportunity for your infrastructure and complementing them, or you can even choose to adopt the entire platform. With that said, I think this is the last slide here. Here are some of the advantage that I can, how PlayFab can help you faster build iteration and scale massively to. Oh, give me one second. Your GP, RCA, and COPPA compliance are completely already, work on and agnostic. We are providing a full-time system, and so that all these actions you drive are fully real-time. In a nutshell, this is my last note. Essentially, we are completely agnostic. It's not something that you have to worry about. It's something that you can work with. So for instance, every major language that people use our engine, we have an example. One of the users actually, built an application for a Tesla car to track the data that the car actually makes. Such simple application is also, used by PlayFab. And what it means is that conceptually, regardless your device, no matter what it is, as long it can call a TLS into a HTTPS, it can use PlayFab. So lastly, essentially, here is the QR code. If you can use the link to sign up for a lot of the Microsoft Developers Program and newsletter. But what it does is you can use the link to also send a lot of the resources that I've shared today, as well as this deck to your mobile phone. So I hope everyone signs up for ID at Azure. It's something that we really hope everyone, regardless of how big or how small your team is, can benefit from. This deck, I've added some resources at the end that could be really useful for you guys. From a lot of like the GDC presentations on gaming, from PlayFab to growth strategy. We also have some of our demos, with the games that we've built, such as, Doom, or even NBA Clash. We have a lot of game development resources for you guys to understand more at Azure. We have our blog, so use us. We also have recently, the game announced that the game development kit that we use is available on GitHub. And lastly, we have some support along the way, which is, okay, this is not working. Um, okay, never mind. The last part essentially is that we have some access to, ID at Azure Xbox program that we can share. I should fix this. But okay, let me just end with this so that everyone can take a picture. Let's just move into Q&A, will we? And does anyone have any question?
Yes, they don't have the mic access since it's a webinar. So you will need to check the chat box server, few questions from in the chat box.
Got it. Okay, so what are the offers for beginner or freshers? So for beginners, actually, it's the same program. Essentially, the idea at Azure for anyone who's just started, you already get access to a lot of the free credits that we are giving out. There's no real offers, but I think that's something that is already generously given via the program. But for anything you have access to, you get a lot of information to apply for free things, free tools and free access. So I would say not so much offers, but a lot of the paid tools and resources are made free to you guys. As a team, how can we connect with you? So definitely, add me on LinkedIn. You can find my name, just search my name. I'll be more than happy to, talk to you guys when you need and share resources with you guys. What tool I can use for creating my first mobile application? I'm still learning about game development. That's super. That's a great question. You can start, finding out more about GitHub. It's something that you can get easily started with. But if you're a student, I think you can also start by learning a lot of resources, learning about the basics as well, of not just about Azure but game development as a whole, with that kit that's already publicly available. Um, Yazaki says that different user count in games supported by PlayFab related to prices. How many users can be supported with 1K that you offer? So a lot of the services for now it's sort of the player count. I think it's up to 1,000. Which means that we can scale it. You don't really have to, add more money or top up. Usually it just means that I more than 1,000, sorry, 100,000. That's what I was trying to say. Anything beyond that, you will have to sort of like fork out, but it's actually relatively affordable. For PlayFab, it's only $8 per month. And I think the more premium plans are maybe at $30 a month. But I think that's something that we can work out, because ultimately we have other sort of credits that you can have access to, which is the startup credit that can allow you to work on these services. Um, Is it possible to make a Web3 game in Unreal Engine? Yes, definitely. We are working very closely with the startups of today. Then definitely we do have startups working on Unreal Engine. Web3 is not an issue because ultimately, as mentioned, we are platform agnostic, so or completely agnostic. So Web3 is something that we will support. Yeah. Do we need a studio to sign up? No. So you can sign up individually as an indie developer. For now, all you need really is a business, registration number or a LinkedIn account, and then you can sign up very fairly easily. Uh, Great. I think you guys are good. I can see a lot on engagement. I hope you guys can build up your teams here. With that said, I think we are time. Um, Shurak, do you want to do a wrap up?
Sure. So I think most of the questions are answered, right? I think there is nothing left to be answered. And thank you again. Thank you all for joining today's session. It was great having you guys with us. It was really engaging to have you with us. And if you have any questions after the session, you can join the community and ask it there. And thank you, and thank you, Lois, for sharing the sessions, sharing the details with the attendees, and giving the tools, giving the answers to the attendees, and yeah, and thank you all for joining. And now we'll be winding up the session, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
thank you, thank you. I just have one last word to say to everyone. Thanks for staying, all the way to understand more about this. Historically, Microsoft has not been, very, very active, at communicating a lot of this information or good resources that we have. I'm here to change that. But ultimately, it's very heartening to know that you are interested in game development. And I know the journey is quite tough for those who are just starting out alone, or as smaller teams. Just know that a lot of these programs we are building is really to help your journey, to accelerate, to grow, to build, and we want to be a part of your journey. So sign up, and definitely stay in touch, and hopefully, in a year or two, probably a year, we can see like some good games out there that you guys have built. So let's stay in touch. Thank you, everyone. This has been great.
Thank you, Lois. Thank you, everyone.